A year in the life of a dreamer. Yesterday I left the education sector for the last time. Not due to frustrations, discontent, or a tough work-life balance. Simply because I've had the same dream since I was 5 years old, and at 31, I still can't shake it off. I've spent the best part of 10 years as a part-time independent wrestler. I've done this whilst forging a successful career in education, of which I'm proud. However, I've reached a crossroad where I cannot achieve any more in this industry without dedicating my all to it. I have liked professional wrestling since I was about 5 years old, when my dad would film it on S4C. It's pretty much the only consistent in my entire life. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles went out as I got older, Power Rangers came in and went out. But pro wrestling, 5 through to 32, it's been sort of like my obsession. If you understand, if you get why it's so intoxicating and infectious, then I don't need to explain it to you. And if you don't get it, I'm not sure that anything that I can say will, but I can try anyway.
Pro wrestling is a show where 2 people have to fight, or sometimes 4 people, or 3 people, or anyway, a bunch of people have to fight. And you have to get the guys' shoulders to the mats, or girls' shoulders to the mats for 3 seconds, or tap them out.
It's a sport in a sense of, you know, there is a real sporting contest going on between the 2 people. There is a real sense of one-upsmanship between the 2 people and between the card in general.
It's got like the athleticism, it's got like the wow factor of a stunt show, it's got the drama of going to see something like a play.
There's a real element of physicality to it.
The entrance music and stuff kind of gives it like a gig type environment.
It's almost masochistic in the way that we willingly injure ourselves.
The crowds tend to be so cool as well that you get so caught up in this like atmosphere.
If you're like rooting for your football team and your football team's losing like 4-0 or whatever, like you can root for them all you want, probably ain't gonna make a difference. But like in pro wrestling, the audience literally change the way the match is going. The audience get the good guy or the baby face up. For an audience member, it feels like their interaction with the product is creating what they're seeing in front of them. And there's not very much entertainment which is like that. Even though I was teaching and teaching was paying my salary and I was earning pennies wrestling on weekends, still all of my focus was on wrestling and teaching was just something I was doing at the time. So the only reason I applied for a job in the school, which I ended up sort of forging my career in, was because it was a boarding school, so I could live on site, save a load of money, so I could move back out to Canada or Japan or America or somewhere to wrestle. I was bored of just teaching. I wanted to progress, so I applied to be a head a year. I sort of told myself, if you get this job, then wrestling will become the thing which you do on the weekends as a hobby, and teaching will be your lifelong profession. And I did get that job, so my mindset shifted really then. I eventually secured a position as a head teacher of a primary school, and right around that time where I secured the headship, I started thinking about whether I wanted to carry on wrestling. It was fine just being a teacher, but being a head teacher and wrestling on weekends is kind of killing me, because I wasn't able to spend any time being down, because I'd spend so many hours in work during the week and then so many hours away at wrestling on weekends that it just wasn't sustainable. Because the wrestling scene had grown to such a point that a lot of people around me on the same shows as me were making a living at wrestling and were able to dedicate all of their time to it. So their gear looked better than mine, their merchandise was better than mine, they were in better shape than me. Ultimately, they were better at wrestling than me because they were able to spend more time doing it. I'd even thought in my head about what my last matches would be and who I'd want them to be against and stuff. And then WWE UK happened. So in January of 2017, they held a tournament, the WWE did, which is like the biggest company in professional wrestling in the UK, to crown a UK champion. And the semi-finals were like 3 out of 4 of the people in the semi-final were like some of my closest friends in wrestling. 2 of them were literally my best friends in wrestling. It gave a possibility of making a living, a comfortable living, not just like a struggle, but a real living in professional wrestling in the United Kingdom. So the February of 2017, I handed my notice in. July 6th, 2017, worked my last day as the head teacher of a school and started my adventure as a full-time independent professional wrestler. My parents being super supportive was kind of a big deal because I hardly ever speak to them. Like, that's not because we don't get along or anything. Like, I love my mum and dad to bits, but like, I'm just not very good at keeping in touch. That doesn't mean I don't value their opinions. I just don't ask for their opinions very often because I'm pretty set when I make my mind up about stuff. So if I ask their opinion, that must mean it's a big decision, you know? Because like, I wouldn't ask for their opinion about applying for a headship, or I wouldn't ask for their opinion about 99% of stuff, but like, for quitting to become a wrestler, I did ask their opinion. And for them to be really supportive was a really big factor. Everyone can turn around and say like, yeah, you should do it, man. Yeah, go for it. I believe in you. You're a kick-ass wrestler. You deserve it and stuff. But like, none of them are putting their homes on the line. Do you know what I mean? My girlfriend didn't sign for a joint mortgage with a professional wrestler. She signed for a joint mortgage with a head teacher. I was looking at my schedule and I had sort of like at least sort of 10 to 12 shows a month, sometimes up to 15 in a month, which was awesome. And it was really looking like it was going to be a pretty good year. And then January the 13th. Real talk, I hurt my shoulder today in a match with Big Grizzly. Pretty bad too. From the moment I clotheslined him over the ropes, I had little to no mobility in my right shoulder and certainly no strength. I woke up this morning and I'm pretty sure it's just a pull or a strain as mobility is building in it as the day goes on. So I'm hopeful to not miss any shows. Sheesh. I haven't read that since I wrote it. That was wrong. I watch it back on video. It's super hard to watch because at one point I go to the outside to fight with him and I grab the ring post and try and relocate my shoulder by holding the ring post and like pulling. And God knows I did 10 times more damage when I did that. That whole week I rested and stuff and it just didn't get better. I went on the Friday to the doctor, to my GP, and asked him what was up. And he was like, yeah, you definitely tore your pec, you know? Even when he told me, I was still like, I bet you it's not torn. I bet it's just partially torn. Because by that point, like, it had been a week and I was already doing push-ups again. And everything I'm reading online is saying that if you've tore your pec, that wouldn't be the case after a week, you know? So I'm thinking it can't be. It must just be like partially torn. February 12th, 2018. Today is not a good day. Finally got in with the orthopedic consultant who confirmed my worst fears. My pec requires surgery. There's a waiting list for said surgery and a rehab time for said surgery. I will not be able to wrestle until approximately July. Heartbroken.
The main thing that I remember him being really stressed about was just saying like, this is so fucking frustrating that I can't wrestle. Like, I love wrestling. Like, if I had an addiction, it would be wrestling. You know, if a painter couldn't paint for 6 months, that would suck. If a musician couldn't play music for 6 months, that would suck. If you have a creative outlet and that creative outlet's taken away from you for a large period of time, that's difficult to deal with, you know? For a lot of people, creative outlet is a huge stimulus in their life. And it was definitely a huge stimulus in my life. And I just can't do that. That's hard. The narrative of my story lends itself that a guy just like took a massive risk to chase his dream. And I'm not sure that that is
the healthiest outlook, that you can just go making reckless decision after reckless decision with no consequences. And if that was the takeaway from the narrative, then I'd be disappointed. I took calculated risks, but I chased something that I really wanted and that I thought I could achieve. I was guilty for a long time of just sitting in a safety net, do you know what I mean? And if I'd have just carried on doing it for 5 or 10 more years, this opportunity would have passed me by, and I'd ended up being, you know, I'd have risked being a depressed 40-year-old man. I look at someone like my dad, who has just done what he was supposed to do his whole life, you know what I mean? And I don't think he's very happy as a result, because, you know, he just went from education to a job, you know, and it was just, he wanted to do stuff and he was told, get a trade. So he got a trade because that's what a man was supposed to do. And now he's a man in his 50s who's riddled with arthritis and his body's a wreck because of the manual labor jobs that he's done his entire life. It's kind of cool to do something like I'm doing now, because I feel like my dad can live vicariously through me, because I'm doing what he didn't do, you know what I mean? He didn't chase after dreams that he would have had. So anytime something cool happens, I get to phone him and tell him, and that's a buzz for him, you know. Going back and talking to myself at like 12 or 13, where you're going through that like angsty thing of, you know, you're wondering, will a girl ever like me? Will I ever accomplish anything? What am I gonna do with my life? I think to go back to that person and be like, you'll tick off a lot of stuff, man. Do you know what I mean? You'll get a silver medal in the British Championships for judo before you're 20. You'll get a degree in mathematics. You'll be the head teacher of primary school before you're 30. And then you'll jack it all in and become a professional wrestler. And you'll do good at that too. Like, I think if I told myself that as a child, I'd probably sleep a lot easier as a child, because I wouldn't be so stressed about what I was gonna do with my life. But if I sit down and think about what the last 32 years of my life have been, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. I've had a good run of things. And if my story were to be made into a movie, then walking out in front of a WWE audience would be the perfect moment to roll credits. Not there yet.